Hi, it's Ray from ProShaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts. We're back on the caddy little bumper pan here. We've got a few little more details to address tonight, and before we do it, please like, subscribe, and hit that little share button. And thank you for, we're up to 39,000 subscribers. We want to get to 1 million. So we need you to really hustle and tell all your friends. What we do here is we're going to listen to what the flexible shape pattern has to say. And what I'm reading here is that we're still a little low here, but observation, you see how this is coming up like this. And if we look at the original, this is flat. See, that's up. So that tells me I've got to stretch this edge right here to bring that down, because in order for that to go down, right in here, right here, that metal will have to be stretched. Now when you're going to stretch an edge like that, most of the work is done on the edge and less as you come here. And the object is we're going to flatten that out. And it needs the same treatment over here too. Another little stretch right here. And on this side, we've got a little looseness, and I think if we bring that down, it's going to tighten that up a bit. And then, of course, we have to planish all these little bugs out here. We got a little bit here, so we might have to do a little shrinking disc work right in here, little shrinking disc work on that edge. And we want to make that nice and straight, except for the little dipsy doodle here. So that's not looking too bad. Once we get that cleaned up a little bit, then we have this joggle to put in, and we'll do that with the tipping wheel. And then we have a lot of little flanging work. This flange here on this edge, which just stiffens it up a little bit. Without that, with the raw edge, it just flip-flop everywhere. And then it has a much stronger, a wider flange, except for where it turns right here. You can see they always do that because it's a lot easier to do for the manually or with a press, and the same thing over here. And this is going to give us a little trouble possibly, because that's a nice little delicate little detail we got to work on here. So now, as far as making this panel, we've got 3 videos. This is the 4th video. And making a video, of course, I'm doing a lot of talking. Some people don't like the talking, some people like the talking, but it's the talking where the good information really comes through. It's hard to show a lot of subtle stuff unless you really explain it thoroughly. So I try to do the best job I can. And with the 3 videos, we have probably only about 20 minutes each of me actually working on the panel. So 20, 20, 20, that's an hour. So I've got probably realistic, maybe a little bit over an hour in this so far. And it might be another hour by the time I'm really happy with the whole thing. So 2 hours for one side, 2 hours for the other side, another hour maybe to join them up. Let's stretch it out 6 hours. So this panel realistically can be done somewhere between, say, 4 and 6 hours, depending on how good your skill sets are. And as you've seen, we haven't used any really big tools or anything. The biggest thing we're going to use probably is the tipping wheel. And you can do it another way too. You can put the joggle in several different ways, but the tipping wheel works the best for me. And so the next thing we're going to do is address those little problems one by one. Mark's going to film them all, but we're going to edit it down as much as possible, so try to make this video not that long. So let's do this little edge stretch here and see how that comes out. We'll use the clay again. And everybody's been asking about this JMac clay, and what we'll do is we'll have Mark look at the box, so you have a picture of what we got. And I'd forgotten that there's 3 levels, soft, medium, and hard, I think. And somebody asked me about that today, and I had to go look at the box, and it's the medium clay I have. If you had the soft, it'd probably work. The hard will probably work too, but this medium works really nice. And if you want to make it softer, all you got to do is heat it up with a heat gun, and it'll soften up really easy. Now, one thing you probably learned from my videos is I use the flexible shape patterns a lot. Well, I'm the originator of the flexible shape pattern. I came up with this idea over 20 years ago, and it actually took me a year to trust my own idea. And it took me a couple years to figure out all the little details about using them. But they're actually really easy to use once you learn the little tricks of them. But the basic fact is, if you take this off an original piece like this, it's capturing the area value of the panel. So it doesn't lie. As long as you make the flexible shape pattern correctly, it captures that area value, which allows you to turn it inside out, which you can make the other side, and it only captures the area value. It doesn't capture the arrangement value. The arrangement value is this. How does it bend? Area value is all about stretching and shrinking the material, and the arrangement value is done with gauges, and you have to make these gauges. These gauges, again, do not lie. Now, you can't buy a gauge like this. This is totally unique to Cadillac. So that gauge only works there. So I do have a set of sweeps, and you can have all these little gauges and everything, but they're really not going to give you the information you need. There's no gauge you can buy anywhere on this planet that looks like this. So you have to make these arrangement gauges in order to get it arranged properly. So let's go on to trying to stretch this here. And I'm going to use a hammer here. This was originally, I think it was a Pexto hammer. Let me see. Yeah, it says Pexto. I actually bought this in an antique store about 30 years ago. And I think I paid $5 for it. And it had a flat face and a flat face. And I got a lot of hammers with flat faces, so I radiused it nice on both sides. And now that comes in really handy if I want to stretch this. So when I stretch this, I want to hit it mostly on this edge over here. I should have a glove on. And then you come inboard a little bit. So it's always this little triangular action like this. Very little stretch here on the zero stretch, but the stretch amount gets wider here. So it's all these little triangles. So we're going to try to maybe use this side, might be better. That's a little stronger. And you see where that clay really does its job nicely. Now we'll take the flatter hammer. This is all relieved. This is my Snap-on baby. I love this thing. Had this since I was a teenager. And we got to define that edge right there a little bit better. So maybe we can sneak up on it right like that. Now, remember, if we goof, it's not the end of the world. We have the ability, metal is clay. We have the ability to fix any mistake we make. But the obvious is, don't make the mistake ridiculously bad. Make the mistake minutely bad. So constant observation. Every strike of the hammer has to have a measure to it. A feedback mechanism. Now you can see that's coming down nice now. But now we put the flexible shape pattern, maybe we do have to pump that edge up. Let's see. Yeah. We might have to define it a little bit more, but we still got to come down a little bit. We're getting clay on the face, so I'll take that clay off. And this is one of those parts, you know, you just can't throw it into a power hammer, you can't throw it into a pull max, you can't throw it in an English wheel and make that shape. A lot of times this shape, if it was handmade, would be made against a hammer form. Now a hammer form is sort of a cheat because the hammer form is a die and you're making up the other side of the die. It's a male die, you're putting it on the male die and then you're hitting it against it like this. Well, that makes it very simple. What we're trying to do is we're trying to manipulate the metal's area surface to come to the correct area value defined by the flexible shape pattern. So we want that to fill out really nicely. So we made a good start on it. We've got to enhance that line a little bit more. It's got to come up a little more until we get the exact same look. And visually, when we look at it, it's supposed to look the same. Right now, it doesn't. It's got to come up a little bit more. This slope here, I'm looking at this slope and I don't like what I've got here, so that's got to be manipulated a little bit. So I'm going to have to hit it some more. But I hope you got the idea there. Now we'll go over here. We'll come back to that later, but let's do the same thing over here. I got to move the clay over to this way here. And we'll stretch this one out the same way. We're slowly getting to our goal. And we're not running to the shrinker stretcher. We don't need to. The shrinker stretcher makes a bunch of marks even if you have a stipple shrinker stretcher. I barely ever use my shrinker stretcher when I'm making a panel. I only use the shrinker stretcher on the edges. If I fold this over, I make a flange and I need to manipulate that flange, that's when I'll use the shrinker stretcher. This all has to be planished. This side, we do the visual comparison here. Let's put this back on. And we can see we're getting close, but it's still no cigar. This has got to come up on this corner here and more definition. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to define this a little bit more. Mark will capture some of it, but we'll edit out quite a bit so it doesn't become a bore. The important thing here is the transfer of information, that you get the correct information, not bad information. So we're going to knock this out a little bit more. We're going to knock it out here a little bit more. And we're going to make this visually look more and more like the original. I'm liking that. It's not perfect yet, but it's pretty close. I think I'm going to clean this all up with lacquer thinner, and I'm going to start defining these edges and tip this and do the joggle, and I'll leave that for last, the super fine cleanup on it, and the trimming and tipping that edge and everything. So next is cleanup, then define the edge, cut the edge, tip the edge, joggle put the joggle in there. All right, here we go. Let's double check, make sure we're doing the right thing. Yeah, that's going down, the other one's coming up. Did you put that light there?
Yes.
Don't like motors on bead rollers or tipping wheels. I like the control of being able to feed it through. There we go. And that straightened it out nice too. Alright, we probably could go one more bite. I'm gonna loosen it up again. One turn. 2 turns. 3 turns. One turn. 2 turns. 3 turns. 3.5 turns. That tape is so important to lay out your lines here. You can correct any problems in developing the line by just putting the tape down, taking it up, and eyeballing it really good. So there's our joggle, and that's stabled the panel really nice. It was a little flippy floppy, but that took it all out. You can see we're going to have to do some planishing down here. That'll come later. We're going to do some shrinking disc work in here. We can hit it from both sides with the shrinking disc, and that'll come out really nice. Now what I want to do is trim off this excess on this side and get this flange tipped. Alright, we got this all trimmed. I marked it out with the blue tape. I got everything the way the original is, pretty much. A little variation here and there, but that's just a little flange, no big deal. So we're going to do the easy one first, this short one, and then we'll do the 1/2 inch wide one here in the back. So it's going to tip right here. I can take this tape off, get that out of the way. Alright, so this is the lever, this is the fulcrum, and we're just engaging that into the rubber lower wheel just a little bit. And if you don't lift up on the panel, it'll make a little mark, so you got to make sure that you lift up. This is 20 gauge, so it turns up pretty easy. Now just go up a few degrees at a time. So there's our tip happening. It's looking pretty good. We'll tighten it just a little bit. We'll get this little one here. Alright, so what we'll do now is we'll clean this up with the dolly and a slap on the hammer. Right here, what usually happens on the ends is your the roll goes in a little bit, so we've got to move that in. So let's do this. So I can do that.
What are you doing that for?
Trying to get this edge straight now. We'll just get that edge in and then we'll clean it up a little bit more later on, but it's in now.
Yeah, I think I'll put that in the tipper again and tip it a little bit more. I got the hard part done, the rest of it shouldn't be that hard. So, and you can see it's starting to show pretty nice. We've got to planish this all out still, which will require shrinking disking. So let's tip some more. Yeah. So I switched to this hammer here. That's my door, or my wiring hammer actually, door skinning modified hammer. So there we go. We got to do a lot of tuning still. We got to bring that in a little bit. You can see that edge is a little wider, so I got to knock that in, and then I'll probably have to cut that down. Let's see what the flexible shape pattern says. Yeah, so you see it's fat right there. I got to bring that in a little bit. Still got to bring this in a little bit. But I was hoping to get this totally finished, but we got a lot of time on this, and Mark's going to have to edit it down quite a bit. So we might have one more episode showing all the little finishing techniques with the shrinking disc and everything. I don't think I'm going to be able to fit it in this one. But I think this was a pretty good video, and like I said, maybe a little torch shrinking and some flexible shape pattern, shrinking disc, and then we'll clean this edge up so it shows that nice parallel line there. We'll square these up a little more here so they look a little better, and I think that panel will look pretty good. You can see now. Let's see. Yeah, that'll marry on there pretty nicely. It's off a little bit right here. It's holding it up, but you can see that. Make the other side, we're going to have the whole assembly. I think using the clay showed you with simple tools that you can do an amazing panel, and I think this will probably be a pretty popular video eventually. Takes a little while to build. So this is Wray Schelin from ProShaper Workshop. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe, give us the likes, and hit that little notification bell so you know when the new videos are coming out. And remember, it's patience, precision measurement, and persistence that gets this stuff done. It's not the tools. Patience, precision measurements, and persistence gets the job done. And metal is clay, and clay works really good with metal also. Wray from ProShaper.